Well, it turns out when you take 316 of our allies and put them in chains and parade them into an immigration detention in a battery factory in Georgia, it's bad for your relationships with South Korea and other countries around the world. Donald Trump's failed economic and failed foreign policy has now collided with his failed immigration policy, and he's now insulted the South Koreans, who were supposed to be our allies. The investability in America is under attack by Donald Trump. How is he ever going to collect trillions of dollars of forced investment in America by our allies when he takes our allies' citizens and parades them on video in chains, leading to South Korea media calling them prisoners of war? Donald Trump tried to scramble at the end and say, well, some can stay and train Americans to do the job. No thanks at the South Koreans, and the South Korean president has some choice words for Donald Trump as well. Me too. I'm Michael Popok. You're on Legal AF on Friday afternoon. Thanks for joining. Let's get to it. On September the 4th, there was a raid by ICE at a construction site building a battery plant for Hyundai, operated by another major company, LG Energy Services. You got an LG TV in your house or an appliance? Same company. These workers, these 316 South Koreans, are skilled and talented in an area of constructing the very precise specifications for a battery plant that are necessary. And they came here on a visa. They came here on a business visa, what's called a B1 business visa, also a waiver of their 90-day visa. Now, there's a little bit of a gray area in there, I'll grant you, in which in order to work full-time on a project and be full-time employed, you have to have what's called an H-1B visa. But that takes time. And after you defund the Immigration and Naturalization Service, and you take away leaders and employees that know what they're doing, is there any wonder that H-1B visas are backed up in the Trump administration? So companies, as they always have, are using these other methods to get their workers for short times into the United States. That's how these 316 South Koreans got in. Remember, these are our allies sent from South Korea. Hyundai, yes, it's a private company, but it's got major investment by the South Korean government. So when you arrest people at a Hyundai site, you're effectively arresting government workers for our ally. Now, not only that, they've been detained at the site since September the 4th until yesterday. And today, they were finally able to be sent back to a hero's welcome in South Korea. Here's what the South Korean president had to say about how his country is being treated. And again, Korea media. Well, let's start with the South Korean comments. This is from the president of South Korea. This is from Lee Jae-myung. Korean businesses that have entered the United States are likely in a state of serious bewilderment. This isn't long-term permanent employment, but to establish facilities and equipment for factories, we need technicians to install machinery and equipment. The U.S. doesn't have such personnel, and they won't give visas for our workers to stay and work. Only after the foreign minister for South Korea, Cho Hyun, flew to America to meet with Marco Rubio was he able to get these people finally out 7 or 8 days later. And they looked, we'll show you the video of them coming off the plane. They looked pretty weary there. And the way that they were paraded around in chains, let's show the video, split screen with me, the way they're being paraded around in chains reminds people of the subjugation of a colonial power. And let's just say that Asian communities and others abroad are a little sensitive to when America starts parading around people in chains. In fact, the news media in South Korea is apoplectic. 70% of us in a survey, the public in South Korea, by a local broadcaster, MBC, said that the United States government did not show consideration for South Korea as an ally. Seoul Economic Daily described the workers as being treated like prisoners of war. The conservative paper Chosun Ilbo called it a merciless arrest operation, representing a breach of trust. Do you see how in the Asian culture this is not going over well? Progressive media outlet Hank Yore asked, is this what you do to an ally? And basically backstabbing, since Lee, the president, met with President Trump. And then after he met with President Trump, remember, it was just less than a month ago that Lee was in the Oval Office. And then 3 weeks later, because they're building a battery plant in Georgia, which will be effectively lead to more employment in Georgia and in the United States in manufacturing, this is how we treat them? Has anybody in immigration or the Trump administration seen the job numbers lately? We just had a revision by the Bureau of Labor Statistics that we are down 1 million jobs, primarily in manufacturing, since March of last year in the new revision. And in the new numbers under the Trump economy, we've lost primarily, we're negative 58,000 jobs in manufacturing. What do they think this is? This battery plant. It's manufacturing. Now is not the time to arrest and create prisoners of war out of our allies working to build a plant in Georgia to employ Americans. And Donald Trump's half-hearted delay, well, if any of the 316 will stay and train Americans, what do you think? It's like an overnight correspondence course. You can just DIY on the internet and learn how to build a battery factory in your spare time in one day. Only one South Korean out of 316 said, I'll stay back. The rest were like, get me out of here and get these chains off of me. The investability of America is being challenged because people, countries, foreign funds, sovereign wealth funds that make investments in countries, even though Donald Trump talks about it, trillions of dollars on these handshake commitments he has as part of his tariffs, which are about to go down in flames potentially with the Supreme Court. But they don't want to invest in America because we're not a stable economy. We're not led by a stable president. So money is going elsewhere. It is going to Latin America. It is going to Africa. It is going to Europe. It is going away from the United States. You think South Korea is going to sign up for more major investment, more plant building, more bridge and tunnel building, more electronics and computer building? I don't think so. And I got news for Trump. Computer chips, which are the engine of the AI economy that we're now watching, which are created, designed by companies like NVIDIA and AMD, they don't make their own chips. They are what's called fabless. They don't fabricate their own chips. Guess who fabricates a lot of the chips that are designed by NVIDIA and AMD computer chips? South Korea. Is this the time to attack South Korea? I mean, already Donald Trump is massing troops, I guess, to go into Brazil because he doesn't like the fact that the people of Brazil are celebrating in the streets the conviction and 17-year sentence for President Bolsonaro, another dictator who in January of his election year tried to overturn the will of the people in Brazil and do a military coup that Donald Trump is now supporting and threatening to use the military because he doesn't like the fact that Bolsonaro's First Amendment rights are being violated. First Amendment of what constitution? This is a sovereign country of Brazil. And even if it was First Amendment, you don't have a First Amendment right to lead a military coup. The only reason it failed in 2023 and Lula was able to take power is because the military got weak-kneed and faint-hearted and walked away, leaving Bolsonaro there kind of by himself with a bunch of supporters in yellow and green flags. That's the only reason. So Donald Trump is busy attacking and tariffing, penalizing Brazil 50% at a time when our economy is on the skids and we need markets like Brazil to buy our goods and services. Canada is already, Carney is, just chef's kiss to our Canadian friends, the Midas Canadians there, Maple Midas. Carney, the prime minister, kicking ass. Every other day, he's announcing a new economic program, policy, infusion, new set of factories, new retooling of the Canadian economy in order to cut off any reliance on the United States and be self-reliant. What do you think South Korea is going to do? You want to pay us back, South Korea? Stop manufacturing computer chips for American companies. At a time when Donald Trump just forced us into a 15% ownership stake in a failing chip designer named Intel, who also doesn't manufacture their chips in the United States. So we're gonna follow this story closely and its ramifications, because this is a domino effect that we're watching. This is the collapse of so many of Donald Trump's perverse, failed policies all coming together in one with this South Korea moment. His failed foreign policy, his failed use of tariffs to punish our allies, which is leading to a worldwide collapse of the American economy. His failure of his national security policy, his failure of his immigration policy, all here in the crucible of 316 South Koreans who are chained together and held in captivity at a battery manufacturing plant in Georgia under this president. He should worry less about how they're going to memorialize the murder of Charlie Kirk and worry more about the suffering in America caused by his perverse policies. But we'll do it together and hold his feet to the fire here on Legal AF. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button. And when you get a chance, come over to Legal AF Substack, where I do live reporting twice a day, along with a lot of other material and content you can't get anywhere else. Become a member there and consider becoming a paid member. That's what keeps this ball rolling. Till my next report later today, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.